There's a funny thing about math. It really doesn't care about election cycles. It doesn't care about political ideologies or what sounds fair during a televised debate. Math just sits there, keeping score. Right now, if you look at the global board, there's a number sitting out there that the human brain can't actually picture. $39 trillion. That is just the national debt of the United States. Add the rest of the world into the mix, and you're looking at pure fiction. Politicians will look you dead in the eye and tell you it is fine. They will say things like, "We just need a better wealth tax," or "If everyone just paid their fair share, we could balance the books." It is a great soundbite. It makes people feel good. But history is sitting in the back of the room, rolling its eyes. We like to think our modern economy is so incredibly complex and unprecedented. It isn't. We are not the first civilization to build a mountain of debt, and we are definitely not the first to think we could simply tax our way out of a mathematical black hole. Welcome to the archive. Today, we are looking at the raw arithmetic of empires. We're going to break down why raising taxes has never saved a dying system. And we will see why the exact same bill you are paying at the grocery store today was paid by a Roman citizen 1700 years ago. Let's drop back to the 3rd century AD. Forget the gladiators and the philosophy for a minute. If you look closely, the Roman Empire was essentially a massive, over-leveraged corporation. They had expanded as far as they could. The borders were huge, the military was expensive, and the bureaucracy was heavy. The main problem? They stopped conquering. The free loot from new territories dried up. But the bills kept coming. They were running a massive deficit. So, the emperors did what every government does when the treasury is empty. They squeezed the public. They taxed the land. They taxed the merchants. But here's the thing about human nature that central planners always seem to miss. People are not just cells on a spreadsheet. When you push them, they push back. Or worse, they just walk away. When the tax burden became so heavy that a Roman farmer could no longer feed his own family, he didn't wake up earlier to work harder. He quit. Thousands of farmers literally abandoned their lands and hid in the forests. Merchants shut their doors. Because if producing wealth only guarantees that you will be punished for it, the smartest move is to stop producing altogether. Rome learned a very hard lesson. A 90% tax rate on zero production gives you exactly zero revenue. They realized they couldn't tax their way to safety. So they panicked, and they found a darker, quieter way to steal from the public. Since they didn't have printing presses to just print paper money, they had to be creative. The state started recalling the denarius, the pure silver Roman coin. They threw them into melting pots, mixed the silver with cheap garbage metals like copper or lead, and stamped them back out. In the year 200 AD, a Roman coin was roughly 90% silver. Fast forward about 80 years, and it was barely 5%. They essentially created money out of thin air to cover their bad debts. Does that sound familiar? Well, the Roman merchants weren't stupid. A local baker could feel that the new coins were lighter, cheaper. He knew the money was losing its soul. So if he wanted the same loaf of bread, he demanded more of those cheap coins. Prices exploded. Inflation tore the empire apart from the inside. The government tried to stop the bleeding with laws. Emperor Diocletian passed an edict making it a literal crime, punishable by death, to raise prices. It was a disaster. You cannot outlaw math. Now, step back into the present day. You hear the exact same arguments on the news every night. If we just tax the billionaires, if we just go after the megacorporations, we can pay off the national debt. It is a comforting thought, but it completely ignores how wealth actually works. Wealth at the highest levels is not a pile of gold coins sitting in a vault waiting for a tax collector. It is fluid. It moves across borders in milliseconds. If a government passes a crippling tax rate, capital doesn't stick around to be a martyr. It packs its bags. It moves to friendlier jurisdictions. It hides in complex offshore trusts. It shelters in tax-exempt assets. So who actually pays? who cannot move their money to an island. The middle class, the everyday worker whose taxes are scraped out of their paycheck before the money even hits their bank account. When an empire tries to aggressively tax its way out of historic debt, the ultra-rich hire better accountants. The poor have nothing to give, and the middle class gets absolutely hollowed out. It happened in Rome. It happened in pre-revolution France. And you're watching it happen right now. Modern governments know they cannot squeeze enough direct taxes out of you without causing a riot. So, they use the Roman trick, the stealth tax. We don't melt down silver coins anymore. It is too messy. Today, a guy in a suit just opens a terminal at the central bank and adds a few zeros to a digital ledger. They call it quantitative easing. They use heavy, academic jargon to make it sound like high-level physics. But strip away the fancy words, and it is the exact same fraud the Roman emperors committed. It is currency debasement. And just like that Roman baker, the modern housing market and the grocery store know exactly what is going on. They adjust. When you dump trillions of new, empty dollars into the economy, it takes more of those dollars to buy the exact same house, the same car, the same carton of eggs. Inflation isn't some mysterious act of nature. It is a policy. It is how a heavily indebted system transfers the cost of its own failures onto your back without ever having to vote for a tax increase. Every time prices go up, that is just the silver being quietly clipped from your coin. A $39 trillion hole cannot be fixed by a clever new tax bracket. You cannot cure a spending addiction by demanding a bigger allowance from the public. Eventually, the math breaks. Currencies get revalued. Debt gets restructured. This isn't some dark conspiracy theory. It is just the cold reality of economic history. The system always resets. The real question is not if it will happen, but where you will be standing when it does. People who ignore financial history will be blindsided. They will hold on to melting currencies and trust broken institutions. But the people who understand the patterns, they will adapt. They will move into hard assets. They will build resilience. You cannot change the arithmetic of the empire, but you can absolutely change your position on the board. Welcome to Financial History. We do not read the daily news here. We decode the path.